The language of the soul is dissent, and it can be very destructive. So if you have been running along like a good little citizen, ticking the boxes and climbing the corporate ladder, and you start to get these whispers from your soul saying, this is not the path. We need to go in a different direction. If you jump into the bus that's being driven by your soul and go, okay, I can't see where the fuck I'm going, but I'm just going to say yes because I trust this, it feels a bit like going through a cyclone where a lot of things will get torn away. There's a beautiful practice in holding yourself through that and trusting that anything that leaves or breaks was never meant to stay. And anything that stays is meant to be there. I'm Madeline Eliza, leader, writer, performer, and founder of Bhakti Lab, an incubator for soul-led entrepreneurs. Join me to explore the edgy intersection of the brain and the body, feminine and masculine, ancient and modern, sensual and spiritual, to help you liberate your personal power and turn your biggest, boldest visions into reality. Hello, welcome everybody. I'm going to start this episode with a little story that uses some metaphor to illustrate a point that I think is very pertinent to this conversation around soul-led leadership, which is something that I speak about a lot and really advocate for. So imagine that you walk into an organization. It's, a medium-sized company. There's several different departments. They're in their own building. And someone has been put in charge of the organization. Let's call them Steve. And Steve was really good as a department head. And Steve was really good working in his area of expertise. He was very talented. We've all, I think, probably known people like this who are very good at a particular role within the organization and then get promoted into a management position. And Steve is not a natural leader. So he's actually been promoted to CEO of this whole organization. He was running one department and now he's been put in charge of the whole show. And he is out of his depth and trying desperately not to show it. He is spinning so many plates. He's not really across the details of things that he needs to be across. He's very stressed. He's trying desperately to maintain control, but the decisions that he makes often impact negatively on the other departments, and so they don't really trust him. He doesn't have a great rapport with the team. He's not fit to be CEO. He doesn't have a broad enough view to really look at the big picture and to hold the risk and the stress and the level of uncertainty and discomfort that comes with those top C-level senior positions. He's out of his depth. He is letting things slide that need to be addressed. The systems are getting sloppy. The building really needs repair. It's actually getting quite dangerous. But Steve is spinning his wheels so fast all the time that he just can't get to it. He's very valuable doing the role that he was playing before, but he's not fit to be CEO. Steve is your mind. So I have just returned from the second of 3 week-long immersions into Kundalini yoga teacher training. And Kundalini yoga is really a technology of the soul. It is about shining your soul. Like you would get your shoes shined. It's about getting your soul shined through these combination of physical practice, of breath work, mantra, meditation. We use it as a tool to shine the soul and connect with the divine. And I had this huge realization in this most recent training module that I have been completely letting my mind run the show for as long as I can remember, and it is out of its depth. My mind is very capable. My mind is very strong. My mind is a very powerful tool. It's really good at what it does. It's a good problem solver, but it's not fit to steer my life. And for myself, for the longest time, my mind has been in charge. And I think that's true for a lot of us. The ego comes from the mind, and it's a way of clinging to control and clinging to what's known and familiar. And I had this kind of penny drop moment, like, oh, And I thought I was doing all these I've been practicing yoga for nearly 20 years. I'm a pretty seasoned meditator. I do a lot of different somatic practices to get into the body and get out of the mind. But still, my mind has been running the show. I use my mind a lot for my work. It's my main tool, right, in the work that I do. But I've let it run the show. And I think a lot of us do that. And we had an exercise in this training, which was to talk to our mind as if it was a child. And we're the parent. And we're coming from the perspective of the soul. This is your true innermost self, your divine self, your higher self. This is your soul. And this is who we actually want to be the CEO of our lives, not our mind. We want to put the soul in charge. And we had this exercise of talking to our mind as if it's a child and we're the parent. And I ended up having this conversation as if my mind was a line manager who'd been given too much responsibility and who was anxious, really anxious about letting go of control and of losing its position. Steve does not want to lose face. He does not want to lose his position. He does not want to lose his job. And so the conversation that I had was like talking to a staff member who is going through change and who needs to be reassured that they are valuable, that we will get their role very clear, but that they are not in charge of the whole organization anymore, like a demotion kind of thing. It was a really funny exercise and it just was such a penny drop moment for me. And I wanted to speak to it because I think it's a very common experience where we give our mind so much power. This is something that I've grappled with. I've immersed myself in Kundalini because I've been studying Tantra, which deals with Kundalini energy. So Kundalini energy is your life force energy, it's your sexual energy, but it's so much more than that. This is like your creative life force. It's conceived as being coiled like a serpent at the base of your spine. And through these practices that Tantra and Kundalini yoga teach, we awaken that life force energy and it can unfurl and it rises up through the chakras and basically enlivens your whole being with this divine, incredibly powerful life force energy. And as I've been really focusing on deepening my training, my practice, teaching these practices, my personal practice has had to really evolve. And particularly with the Kundalini yoga, where we need to maintain a daily practice. That's how the technology works. It's discipline, but it's also devotion. And I've noticed my mind really resisting that. And we've had this gap in between the first and the second immersion where we're supposed to maintain a daily practice. And my mind has been resisting and fighting against it so much. And I realized that it's the ego wanting to hold on to the old and the certain and the familiar because it's comfortable, and resisting change and resisting the new and resisting that which is uncertain. Like the mind will trick you clinging on to old patterns and old ways because it doesn't want to give up control. When we commit to living a soul-led life, we're right on the edge all the time. We're constantly stepping into the unknown. We're constantly stepping into the new. We're taking leaps of faith, and the mind kicks and screams at that. So I've had this interesting period in between these two trainings of really witnessing my mind going ballistic, like I don't want to do this. And I speak about discipline and devotion because I see a lot of talk in the feminine embodiment sphere, particularly on Instagram, but online generally. The embodiment girlies talking about devotion and that devotion is more important than discipline. Devotion is the feminine way, discipline is masculine. That's old hat, chuck it out. I actually argue that you need both and that they are a function of each other. So there's no devotion. For me, the practices of Tantra and Kundalini yoga are a practice in devotion to the divine, in devotion to a life of union with infinity. And it's a practice of devotion to my own soul and my own fullest expression so that I can have the biggest, brightest impact in this lifetime. So they are devotional practices, and that is the intention that I bring to the work. But there is real discipline required as well, like structured, linear, hardcore discipline of getting up at 4:30 or 5 a.m. in the morning so that I can practice before my children wake up, doing the practice when I don't want to do it, sacrificing other things, sacrificing staying up late and doing all the things that I could be doing with my life if I wasn't committed to being in bed at 8:30 so that I can get up at 4:30 and do my practice. Like, there is discipline behind the devotion, and there's devotion behind the discipline. It's hard and it's clearly delineated and it's strict, but there's also this energy of love and softness behind it, because I know that the discipline is a vehicle to further that connection with the divine and the all of everything. So the two really work hand in hand. And I don't think these embodiment and polarity teachings that say you've got to be so feminine or so masculine, it's not helpful. It's not really very feasible. It's not really very realistic. We actually need both. And I came across a term in my studies which I wanted to share, because when I conceived of this business, Bhakti Lab, which is my incubator for soul-led entrepreneurs, I offer a combination of mentoring and operational leadership services for startups who are kind of trying to find their way, for scale-ups who are experiencing growing pains, and I also offer mentoring for leaders who want to do the deep personal inner work in order to thrive. And when I put this business together, I wanted to fold in these spiritual practices and these teachings which have been so transformational for me. And I came up with the name Bhakti Lab because Bhakti means devotion, and lab is like the space where we work the devotion. It's this combination of the masculine and feminine, the discipline and the devotion. And the tagline for my business is the science of devotion, because I'm interested in how we can operationalize devotion and make a decision that we want to live a soul-led life and we want to live in communion with the divine and with the infinite. Well, how do we operationalize that day to day in this modern world where we're on our iPhone and doing whatever work we're doing and dealing with our families and our children? And how do we actually bake that in? Like, what is the science and the technology behind living a life of devotion? So my business is Bhakti Lab, the science of devotion. And in my yoga training, I came across this term pratyahar, and it is the practice of directing the mind consciously towards the infinite, which is exactly what we're talking about. And you can imagine the full body chills that I had when I came across this term, because this is an ancient Kundalini yoga practice, pratyahar, this science of dedicated devotion. Tantra is a science of unison. It means woven together. It's like weaving together the fabric of the cosmos. It is weaving together the polarities of the self and the infinite, of the body and the divine, of lightness and dark, of masculine and feminine. It's all about coming from the multisin into unison. That's what Tantra is all about. Kundalini yoga really amplifies this. And I love this concept of pratyahar because it's exactly what my business is all about, and it's exactly what I stand for. Having this awareness of the self and the infinite is very powerful as a day-to-day practice, not just when you're on the meditation mat, but trying to continually be opening yourself to the flow of infinite love, especially as a feminine embodied being. I think I've talked about this before, but this, the feminine yearns to be full. That's Shakti energy. The deepest desire of a feminine identified being is to open deeper and deeper and deeper into the flow of love. And ultimately that flow of love is a divine connection. It's not actually about connection with self or other. That urge to merge and completely lose ourselves in this flow of love is about the self merging with the infinite. And I think that's a very powerful awareness to carry day to day. And the practices of Kundalini yoga really help to bake it into your daily routine so that you don't lose that focus. You have the discipline and the devotion baked into your daily practice, and it helps you to stay in a space where you're aligned with your soul and able to step into doing the work that you came here to do and being the best version of yourself for the people that you care about, and for your business if you run a business as well. So where does that leave the mind is a question that naturally flows on from here. If you resonate with this concept of letting your mind run the show, and letting the resistance run, those repeated patterns that keep you stuck and small. When we switch to living a soul-led life, it can be very frightening and very threatening for the mind. And just having that frame of reference, I have found incredibly helpful, because it helps me to reappraise the resistance that I'm feeling and the fear that I'm feeling as like, oh, that's just my mind having a little freak out because I'm on this soul-led path now. That's normal. I expected that. There it is. Okay, great. There's not actually a problem here. I can just allow space for that. To go back to that analogy of Steve, the CEO who shouldn't have been CEO, when we can gently and lovingly return the mind to its rightful place, it is a tool. It is a servant of the soul. If the soul is in charge, the mind can go out and do its bidding and contribute in the ways that the mind is good at contributing, but not be given excess responsibility or excess power or excess influence, because it's not actually skillful at managing that extra power. Another thing that I would mention around leading from a soul-led space is that often the language of the soul is dissent, and it can be very destructive. So if you have been running along like a good little citizen, ticking the boxes and climbing the corporate ladder and, doing whatever your cultural conditioning has led you to do in your life, and you start to get these whispers from your soul saying, this is not the path. We need to go in a different direction. And it can feel like something scratching away at you from the inside. That's been my experience, like a little tap, tap, tap. Can't keep ignoring me forever. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to keep getting louder and louder until you listen. And when we choose to listen, it can result in a lot of destruction. And this is like the process of self-actualization, which I have another podcast episode on self-actualization, which I'd really recommend you listen to if you're interested in these topics. I go into it in quite a lot of detail and from a mythological and storytelling perspective as well. I recorded that over 6 months ago now, maybe 9 months ago. And it's really interesting to be standing where I'm at now, because I recorded it when I was in the descent. And so that was very resonant for me. And I've now arrived in a place of being in greater alignment with my soul and seeing a path open up where I can completely stand in my truth and my power. And there is space for me to do great work in the world from that space. So I actually resigned from a job that I loved, where I was secure. It was really meaningful, purpose-driven work that I resonated with. I loved the team that I worked with. I was really passionate about it, but I didn't feel that I could bring all of myself to it. I didn't feel like I could express these facets of myself that were crying out to be expressed, which was my soul speaking through me, actually. And I had a lot of personal challenges going on at the same time, divorce-related stuff. And I ended up resigning from that job and listening to this inner voice and embarking on this journey of podcasting, writing, really fleshing out my ideas around feminine leadership, and building a business more in alignment with myself. I've deepened my study, my training, my practice in Tantra, in Kundalini yoga, these like energetic and embodiment practices that feel very, very important to me and foundational to my work. And what I have to offer as a leader to other leaders. So I've gone deeper into all of that. And then I've put this business together that feels like it's got space for me to breathe, where I can bring all of myself and weave all of these different facets together to support leaders and founders and CEOs and teams to really self-actualize, and to self-actualize your business as well, right? Like to turn the vision that you have for your business into a tangible, practical reality. That's the work that my business is focused on. And I launched the business with like one post on Instagram. I spoke to a few friends, and 3 months later, I'm almost at capacity with dream clients, speaking on other people's podcasts, have all these opportunities opening up. And it's opening up because I'm in alignment and because I've been on this journey of descent. But I have to say, the journey is terrifying at times. It's been a very, very uncomfortable, almost 12 months for me of being in this kind of wilderness, jumping off a cliff, listening to those whispers, but not really having anything very solid to hang on to. It's felt very destructive. I left a job that I loved. That's felt really, I've questioned that decision a lot. Was that the right thing to do? And so I wanted to speak to the concept of descent, because that is often how the soul operates. We've constructed this careful life, but if it's not actually in alignment and we choose to listen to the whispers of the soul saying, hey, this is not in alignment, then the journey that ensues is one of descent. More often than not, it can be very destructive, it can be very painful. And as I record this, we're actually just coming out the back of Tropical Cyclone Alfred, which hit the eastern coast of Australia in March 2025. And it was a bit of a fizzer in the end, to be honest, where I live anyway. There was a lot of build-up and fear, and then it didn't really end up being all that bad. But it has come through, and it's destroyed structures, it's destroyed trees, it's destroyed buildings. And I mean, that's what cyclones do generally. If we take the concept of a cyclone apart from this particular experience of Alfred, the soul is a little bit like that. It will, if you jump into the bus that's being driven by your soul and go, okay, I can't see where the fuck I'm going, but I'm just going to say yes because I trust this. It feels a bit like going through a cyclone where a lot of things will get torn away if they do not fit with the truest version of yourself. And I think there's such a beautiful practice in learning to listen to those whispers, and learning to intuit the difference between, resistance and intuition. Like if you're getting a whisper not to do something, is that the resistance of your mind, or is it actually your wise body-based intuition? There's some nuance there. But when we get into the bus driven by the soul and we choose to listen and we choose to trust and we go through this cyclone, there's a beautiful practice in holding yourself through that and trusting that anything that leaves or breaks was never meant to stay. And anything that stays is meant to be there. And it's a kind of surrendering up to a higher power with a lot of faith, actually. There's huge faith in self, faith in the divine, and just seeing where you land on the other side of it. And obviously it's an ongoing journey. I'm not coming at this from some enlightened space by any means, but it's interesting looking back at that other episode I recorded on self-actualization is when I kind of knew that I was taking the first steps on that journey. And now I've landed in a place where it's like, okay, I've done it. Like I've integrated my truth and I'm standing in it. Like I've stripped off all these layers of falsehood and hiding the truth of who I am. And there are opportunities and abundance pouring into me because I'm in alignment with the truth of my soul. And I'm really excited to support other people with this work as well. If this resonates with you, check out my website, madelineeliza.com. There's a page all about Bhakti Lab, which is my incubator for leaders, founders, CEOs, whether you're running a business or whether you'd like some personal mentoring. We can bring all of this into those sessions. And I also will shortly be offering Kundalini yoga classes, which is like a very powerful daily practice that you can do to stay in this space of alignment and kind of tune the channel of your body-mind system to listen to the soul as the CEO and make your soul the CEO, get your mind back into its rightful place. And in that, we can really honor the body as well. Let's not forget the body in this whole trifecta. To go back to the analogy of Steve, I would say the body is the building that the company is housed in, right? That is just degrading under Steve's shoddy leadership, which if we let our mind run the show can often happen to the body as well. Tantra is a science of unison of the body and the spirit. So the body is really important in a lot of these ancient Eastern traditions. Yoga, Ayurveda, they're all connected. Whereas our Western scientific system has really prioritized the brain over the body for several hundred years. And that's starting to change now. But yeah, when we get everything into right relationship, the soul is in charge. The mind is a tool for the soul. doing its job, but not with an excess of power or influence. And the body is the beautiful home that our soul lives in and is intimately connected to, and which we need to treat with reverence. And also, have that discipline and devotion with the physical practice as well. So I will be starting to teach Kundalini yoga soon. You can check out details on my website. Also follow me on Instagram at bhakti.lab. That's BHAKTI.lab, LAB. You can stay tuned with any upcoming classes and workshops there, and I hope to see you soon. Have a beautiful soul-led day.